If Trevor Lawrence plays, you cannot question his toughness at all. That's one thing that he has checked that box. We'll talk about that and more here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Thank you for joining another episode of Locked On Jaguars. I'm the host, Tony Wiggins of the Locked On Jaguars podcast, where it's your team every day. And we thank you for making us your first listen. A quick reminder, we're free to subscribe to on our YouTube page. That is Locked On Jaguars. Make sure you get there, subscribe, hit that like button, and also the bell so that you receive notifications each and every time we drop an episode. And then wherever you listen to podcasts, from an audio standpoint, make sure wherever that is, you check in every single day to make sure you don't miss an episode. Today's show is sponsored by LinkedIn Talent Solutions. That's right. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your jobs for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. And a special hello to our everydayers for being everydayers, and you can be one if you're not. All you got to do is tune in every single day. All right, here's what we're going to talk about today. Trevor Lawrence is tough if he plays. If is the operative word. We do not know for sure if he's going to give it a go, but I'll go through and detail some of his injuries. And I'll tell you why I think that's important when we talk about Trevor Lawrence and we discuss whether or not he is who everyone thinks he is. Injuries for the team. They are real. The Jaguars are banged up, and injuries affect teams in different ways, but it's still not an excuse, and I'll tell you why I feel that way. And finally, Cam, the hero. That's right, Cam Robinson. Not going to really speak too much on the fact that he is looked at as the savior, but what I will talk about is the irony that he is the one who's looked up as the savior. Folks wanted to replace Cam Robinson with Walker Little. And now Cam Robinson seems like the one everybody wants back. And my message for that is be careful what you wish for when it comes to trying to get rid of certain players. All right, so let's get back to the top of it and not bury the lead. Trevor Lawrence practicing. And this is a theme now that whenever Trevor Lawrence gets hurt, you know, I'm just gonna sit here and tell you right now, man. Unless they take him out of there on life flight, he's gonna play the next time he comes. The Jaguars have a game, because I saw Trevor Lawrence limp down the hallway, and I'm thinking, ain't no way he's gonna come back anytime soon. And he came back the very next week. Let me tell you. Let me chronicle these injuries for you. There was an ankle, a knee, concussion, and now there's an AC sprain in the shoulder. But this dude is doing every single thing that he can to be back on the field. Not shying away from competition, not saying, well, I don't know if I want to risk injury or not, or not throwing away the season, not running away from all of the criticism. Trevor Lawrence is standing in the paint, 10 toes down, standing on business, as everybody likes to say and overuse certain terms, but that's exactly what he's doing. He's standing on business. So what does that mean? What it means is there's so much talk about whether or not Trevor Lawrence is generational, which is an overused term as well. I think he's a franchise quarterback. I also said last week that right now I wouldn't even worry about re-signing him, and I wouldn't until he stops becoming a turnover machine. I just think there's a bad precedence that you set, even though you may have a reason for it. There's a bad precedent you set if you give $150 million guaranteed to somebody who has not played well right before you give them the money. So that doesn't mean I don't have the commitment to him. That doesn't mean that I don't think he can do some of the things that we thought he could do coming here. It just means that there's no reason to rush and pay him right now when you don't have to. You can play Trevor Lawrence all next year. You can, I think at some point during his fourth year, they have to decide whether or not they're going to exercise his fifth-year option, which they're going to. But you don't have to give him that bread. You can let him play through the fifth-year option. At the very least, let him play through half of next season. And let's just see if he gets back on track. Because even before they went on the slump, Trevor wasn't playing particularly well. He wasn't playing terribly, but he wasn't playing particularly well. He wasn't playing as well as he played down the stretch last year. So it was a little bit inconsistent. The play was not as clean. There's a lot of talk about reading defense and going through progressions and all of that stuff. And I think that's been a little bit overblown. But I will say is you need to put some stuff around him because I don't want the Jaguars to ruin, and hopefully they haven't already. I don't think they have, but I don't want them to ruin Trevor Lawrence and his prospects. And if, I can't just assume that everyone has always listened to this podcast. So I'm going to tell you what happened 3 years ago. I literally 3 years ago said that they need to insulate him and make sure that they surround him and challenge him and teach him. Don't act like just because you got the rights to this dude that all of a sudden everything by itself is just going to get well. You know what I mean? I'm a firm believer in the more talented the player, the more you have to pour into the structure and the infrastructure. I'll say it again. It sounds backwards. It sounds as if you're saying the lesser the player, the less you have to do around him. No, what I'm saying is the better the player, the bigger the aspirations. The bigger the aspirations, the more people you need to make sure that you stay on track. The more people you need to make sure that he's insulated, because there's going to be more attention, there's going to be more scrutiny, there's going to be more eyes, there's going to be more noise. And I just think, and I'm not saying that they didn't do it. I think when they started this, they didn't do a very good job. And I think they've tried, but some of the things that they've tried have not progressed on the field the way that you want them to. His communication with his wide receivers, the fact that he even said they look like they don't practice, all of these things. They need to get back to having a standard that's so high, it's not even funny. They need to act like they got guys that aren't talented, because it seems like you coach harder. It seems like you pay more attention to detail when a guy isn't talented than you do when he is super talented. So all of this talk about who he is and what he is, the one thing I know about NFL players, when we talk about getting back to his toughness, NFL players respect people that don't run from stuff. Former players, current players, they respect guys that are willing to go out there and stand in the paint. Players actually respect media members that criticize them and still come look at them in the face. I was once told that they don't respect you if you sit on the radio and say all of this stuff and they never see you. They never see you at practice. At least you're standing there in the paint and you're dealing with them, and you're not running from stuff and basically throwing stones from, a point that isn't even within view of the people that you're criticizing. So I really think that this is a tip of the cap to him for wanting to do any and everything that he can to get out there on the field to try to help his team get into the playoffs. I think that'll go a long way. There's a lot of goodwill in that. And it also shows the football character of him. So we criticized Trevor a lot lately for a lot of things, but don't for 1 minute think that him constantly trying to play injured goes unnoticed by people, because it doesn't. It actually does let everyone know that he has it on the inside and he has it where it counts. And you never know until somebody starts getting hit with a lot of the criticism and starts getting hit with a lot of eyes on him. And there's this old saying, if you live for the applause, you'll die from the criticism. He obviously wasn't living for the applause, because the criticism is there, and he's not shrinking in the moment. So you got a gamer, you got a tough guy. Now he just has to cut down on the turnovers and lead a bunch of guys that aren't as good as we thought they were, and do the absolute best we can. We got to watch the games and think that Trevor did everything he could to lift this team, and we shouldn't even be having a debate in the future of whether or not he was the reason why they lost games. And when we get back to that point, I think that's when we can start talking some more contract extension. I haven't ruled it out. Everybody thinks that because I'm talking like this that I'm saying, no, just go find another quarterback. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that use the time that's allowed to you to make the decision, and you still have time to do it. Before, I thought as soon as the league year started, they needed to go ahead and ink into a deal. Now, I think they should wait until he gets back on track and he starts playing like the Trevor Lawrence that everybody knows that he can be, and that's when they need to go ahead and ink that deal. All right, we're going to talk more about that. Talk about injuries, whether it's an excuse or a reason for the Jaguars to actually be in the situation that they're in. I don't want to talk about their situation as if it's like the worst situation in the world, because it's not. But in terms of what your expectations were, Yeah, it is. It can be a little bit of of an ugly situation and something that really really catches you by surprise. So we'll talk about injuries, whether it's whether they're real, is it an excuse or a reason for the Jaguars to be playing the way that they're playing. We'll do that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, today's show is brought to you and sponsored by LinkedIn. That's right, LinkedIn Talent Solutions, man. It is the absolute truth, especially for people that have small businesses and they're trying to do some hiring. You're trying to deal with contractors and you're trying to deal with licensing and you're trying to deal with all of this stuff. And you haven't taken the time to think about how you're going to put a staff together. Well, LinkedIn is the best place for that. It isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it an easy and the best place for you to do some hiring. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Thankfully, LinkedIn, the process is intuitive, quick, and easy. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Segment number dos, that is 2, here on Locked On Jaguars. I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast, where it's your team every day. And we thank you for making us your first listen. Injuries. There's a fine line between an excuse and a reason, right? They can also be identical twins, depends on who you're talking to. Are the Jaguars banged up at some critical positions? Have they had musical chairs on the offensive line? Have their receivers been banged up? Has Trevor been playing hurt all season? Have their defensive backs missed a lot of time because they've been banged up? The answer is yes, 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 and triple yes to all of those questions. Yeah. They've had all of those problems. The Jaguars have had injuries. They've had people that are banged up. Would their season look a little bit differently had they stayed healthy? Yes, it would have. So therefore, it would sound as if we're making an excuse for the Jaguars to be losing 4 straight. That is not what we're doing. We're just stating the fact that their season may have looked different had they not had so many injuries. Here's the part of that. The caveat to that is this: injuries are a part of football. It happens. They haven't played one healthy team all year. Everybody that they've played have been virtually banged up at some point. Some guys played while they were banged up, so it's not an excuse. The only excuse this points to is depth and team building, and that's why I point the finger at Trent Baalke. Depth and team building is important. All 53 people and the practice squad, you have to build that and construct that in a way that you'll always have depth and you'll always have help at quality positions. Now, you get to your third and fourth quarterback, and you're going to start scratching your head because that's not a position by its nature, where you're going to pretty much get the same or better play when you replace your starter or the backup. Now, that's being pushed and tested by Cleveland, who's on their fourth quarterback, Joe Flacco, and the dude looks like an MVP candidate. That's a whole different ball game, right? A whole different ball game. It does make you wonder, though, will the NFL start valuing guys like that are older, but still can pay them $6-7 million to maybe come in and win some games for you, as opposed to having a young developmental cheap player behind your starter with the thought that if he goes down, you're doomed anyway. Good thing that some teams don't think like that or have the wherewithal to call Joe Flacco, especially in Cleveland's case, because he's been able to hold their season together. And not only that, they clinched a playoff spot with a week to go. They already clinched their division. And nobody's going to want to see them in the playoffs because they play really, really good defense. So because of that, I can't allow the Jaguars to use excuses. They've been in a lot of games with those same hurt players. And then what happens? Yeah, they trip and fall over their own feet. It kind of reminds you, if you used to watch The Road Runner with Wile E. Coyote, he used to order all of this stuff off of Acme or whatever. I don't know how they delivered it to him in the desert by the Grand Canyon. But anyway, he would get all of this stuff to catch the Road Runner, and none of it would ever work the way it was supposed to or the way it was advertised. None of it. And that's what happens with the Jacksonville Jaguars. They get in these games, they're playing, they're going along, and the mistakes that they make have nothing to do with injuries. You could argue that maybe they wouldn't be in that close of a game if guys were healthy. You can do that all day. You can do that all day. You can talk about a bad call early in the game that maybe if they hadn't had that bad call work against them, maybe that they'd be better off. You can do that all day too. None of that is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about in situational football where the bad calls and the injuries have already happened and the Jaguars are standing there and they do something that absolutely makes you scratch your head and wonder, are you watching a Pop Warner football game? Those are the things that have cost them to lose the game, not the injuries. A lot of times they've been in these games with those same injuries. Injuries don't cause your quarterback to just drop the ball when he's running and nobody's touching him. Injuries don't cause guys to be guys aren't on the same page in between the quarterback and the wide receiver. When even if you had all of the other guys there, the guy you were trying to throw the ball to would have been out there anyway. He's a starter. None of that. None of that. Other teams have been injured. Cleveland has three offensive linemen missing. Three. Yeah, and still they're finding a way to move the ball down the field, even with their best player, their running back, hurt. It's an excuse. And I don't want them to be able to use excuses because I want them to fix it in the offseason. I'm getting rumors now that some people in the building even want Press Taylor. They're mad at Press Taylor. But those same people, maybe the GM, maybe he's mad at Press Taylor. And if he's able to get somebody to get rid of Press Taylor, that means, okay, we fixed it. Haven't y'all got tired of that already? This is why I keep saying don't stop with Press Taylor. If you want Trent Baalke gone, the last thing you want them to do is fire Press Taylor. I'm just being honest with you. Because firing Press Taylor would be like, okay, we fixed it. There's our problem. And I'm not saying he's not a part of the problem. And I'm not saying that the quarterback isn't thinking that he's part of the problem. But what I am telling you is this. He is not the biggest problem. And if you allow them to cherry pick a problem and dress that problem up as, okay, that was the issue, you're going to find yourself in the same situation now, that you're in now. You're going to find yourself right back into that situation because Trent Baalke can't pick a team and build a team. I'm convinced. Now, I want to be wrong. I want the Jacksonville Jaguars to prove me wrong, get into the playoffs, get hot again, and get to the AFC Championship game and give us something to be happy about in a few weeks. And if that happens, I'll come right back on this show and say, well, they did something right, and I'll try to decipher and figure out what that is. But right now, I'm telling you what I believe they did wrong is staying pat last season in the offseason because I think it allowed complacency to creep into this football team and into this organization. And now they're standing there looking around. You know, folks always think guys don't want people to come take their position or their spotlight. Yeah, until you start losing, then you're looking around for somebody to help you. So think about that. Think about all the times you wanted to get rid of somebody and then wish you still had them back. Well, that's what's going on, in my opinion, with my man Cam Robinson. That's exactly what I believe is going on with Cam Robinson. I think now people want Cam Robinson to come back because now they realize just how bad that offensive line is without him. And I used to talk about how bad it was with him. Now imagine folks are really talking about how bad that line is without Cam Robinson. I'm going to tell you about that, all of that in just a second here in the third and final segment on Locked On Jaguars. I first have to let you know that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Going to talk about Cam Robinson and how y'all love yourself from Cam Robinson all of a sudden. We'll do that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. Want to let y'all know about DoorDash, man. That is the sponsor for today's show. DoorDash is the absolute truth. Has done wonders for me. Ever since like 2020, when we were all locked into the house, DoorDash was bringing food, right? When places weren't able to stay open and we weren't able to go, DoorDash always got my food to me hot. You thought that was going to stop because we all got free? No, it didn't stop. DoorDash is still doing the same thing. I moved to a new neighborhood, and some of the places don't have us on the grid. DoorDash has no problem finding us here on north side of Jacksonville near the airport and all of those great restaurants in my neighborhood. So here's what you do. Get 50% off up to $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter the code LOCKED23. That's LOCKED, the numbers 23. Subject to change, terms apply. I'll read it again. 50% off up to $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter the code LOCKED23. Subject to change, terms apply. And I want to let y'all know about FanDuel, man. If you don't know by now, I don't know what to tell you, man, other than you need to be jumping on FanDuel and getting you some of this bread and some of this Skrilla, man, because FanDuel is the absolute truth. It's cold outside. You want to stay in and drink some tea and watch some games and make you some money? Well, right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. I'll say it again. New customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. The app is easy to use. It has spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL. All right, third final segment here on Locked On Jaguars as we get you prepared for this weekend's home finale versus the Carolina Panthers. Hopefully you tuned into the crossover episode we did yesterday with Julian Council of Locked On Panthers. We gave all of the keys to victory and all of the big storylines of the game. The playoff picture and the scenarios, the Jaguars win, and those other two teams that are chasing them in the AFC South, the Colts and the Texans lose, and the Jaguars clinch the division and therefore the number 4 seed in the playoff spot. If they lose, they'll have to beat the Titans and hope neither one of those teams win on Sunday. And then if the Jaguars lose and both of those teams win, then those teams actually play each other, I believe, in week 17. And the Jaguars might be stuck, man. I'm telling you, because one of those teams, one of them, one's going to win, one's going to lose. That's the last thing you want, right? It's to lose and both of those teams win, because now you're sitting there possibly looking at a wild card situation, and then you need a whole bunch of other help. But they control their own destiny right now. And one of the players that can help them do that, secure a playoff win, and is now revered by fans, and fans are hoping he comes back, is Cam Robinson. I remember when Cam Robinson went down the very first time and he wasn't available early in the year, there were fans saying, well, good, because now we get to see Walker Little at left tackle. And maybe if Cam doesn't want to play guard, he could just be our swing tackle, making a lot of money to be a swing tackle, but that's all right. And then Cam Robinson came back, was playing pretty good. Team was doing really well. Then he got hurt again. Since he's gotten banged up again, the Jaguars have not looked good at all, right? It hasn't necessarily been Walker Little's fault at left tackle. Walker Little actually is a better left tackle than he is a left guard. But he's still not, I don't believe, as good, especially in the running game. I don't think he's as good as Cam Robinson. And maybe they try to move Walker Little back inside again, because they're not, even though Ezra Cleveland looks real athletic and he does some nice things, he keeps showing up, giving up a lot of pressures. He keeps showing up. Grading out is not one of the best linemen. And I've always told y'all, when I try to evaluate linemen, it's very, very difficult for me. So I kind of trust those analytics and those advanced metrics that say, he's not playing well. I trust my eyes when it comes to certain people too. And one thing I can tell you is Cam Robinson is super, super physical. But it teaches me a lesson about wanting to replace people when you don't have an adequate replacement. It's easy to talk about the next guy when a guy is standing right in front of you, and that guy isn't great, but you understand why a team will keep him around, because it's hard to get better than decent, especially at that position in the National Football League without paying a whole bunch of money. The best thing to do is hit lightning in a bottle and draft a guy. And when you draft someone, hopefully they turn out the way you have them, and then you have them in an inexpensive way for the next 4 or sometimes 5 years, depending if he's a first-round pick or not. It's hard to find good left tackles in this league, man, especially big 328-pound guys that can move and that know how to move people and play with a little nasty. Cam Robinson isn't perfect. We see that. But now we also see that Jaguar fans and even some media, including me, probably were wrong and erred in thinking that we could just move on from him and replace him and keep the same production. I know it's very difficult to move on from someone like that and replace him when Trent Baalke is the one making the picks. He hit on Anton Harrison, very good pick, very good player. I'm not going to say he isn't. But this has to be more than the first round. The Jaguars have to actually get value and worth from people and players that are beyond first round picks. And I just don't think Trent Baalke is that. In fact, he didn't even pick Cam Robinson. He inherited Cam Robinson from the previous administration. But it's crazy that after all of this time, and as long as Cam Robinson has been here, he's on his second contract, that folks are now clamoring for him to hurry up and come back from injury when it seems like to me they were ready to run him off into the horizon. And I was one of them. Not just because of Walker Little. I thought maybe they let, and I'm on record when they picked Anton Harrison, I said maybe he's their future left tackle because he played all of his games except one of them at left tackle in college. And there's nothing that suggests that he couldn't have been a really good left tackle or that he still won't. I don't know if they'll move him. But what I will tell you is this. Just because a guy like Walker Little was a Swiss Army knife and he could do a whole bunch didn't mean he could ever do anything great. And I still don't think that's the case. I think when Cam Robinson comes back, they're going to plant him at left tackle and move Walker Little back inside the left guard. And just because he's not as good as a guard as he is tackle, you have to still ask yourself, is he a better guard than Ezra Cleveland? That's the big question. And I like Ezra Cleveland. But those advanced metrics and those numbers and analytics are saying something different that maybe I need to take a harder look at that also. But just be careful what you ask for. Be careful what you wish for when it comes to running off guys. And I think we're learning our lesson that today. So talked about Cam Robinson being a possible hero coming back. Trevor, how tough he is. And I think the points that's going to earn him around the league if people are going to ever evaluate him correctly and without prejudice. And then the injuries, are they real? Yeah, they're real, but there's still no excuse. All right, man, make sure you check out Locked On Sports Today because Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Good luck to the Jaguars. Good luck to you that's going to the game. Enjoy it. I hope you'll have some joy come Sunday afternoon, about 30 minutes after the game. We will do a live postcast. Hopefully it's a victory, but if it's not, we're going to come back and tell some more truths here on Locked On Jaguars. Until then, y'all take care of each other and Happy New Year to you, and we'll see you next time here on Locked On Jaguars.